Welcome to part 2 of today's videos. I managed to get myself to do this recording. But first I must apologize. I decided to make the last video a one-take video, no editing, no inserting B-roll footage or screenshots of the forecast. And that's how we're going to do this video as well, so bear with me. I just want to run through the basic process of how I do things, especially coming from the perspective of a person with what I think is moderate to severe ADHD. I have some days is worse than others, okay? Today was kind of a bad day. And right now I'm always learning about myself and how to do things better and how to come up with techniques for things. So I'm looking at this mass of plants and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was walking the garden with boyfriend. Normally he doesn't walk with me for this process, but I walk the garden and try to decide where to plant things, and I was like, I can't do this today. So what I did here is I separated out plants into their different kind of categories. I've got the vegetable plants over there. This is shade garden plants, and this one is kind of not a shade garden plant, but I think it's going to go with those plants. These are the really ornamental plants that I don't quite know what to do with, but also they can kind of go anywhere, and I think I know where they're going to go. And then I have the giant plants. So the Powys Castle could be giant. It depends on where it's planted. I think if they're in rich soil with mulch, then that's how they get really big. That's how they got big at my mom's house. And then the Joe Pye weed is supposed to be an extremely large plant. Like, I don't know, I've heard upwards of like 10 feet tall and forming a really big clump. So giant plants. Now the category of plants that I don't have with me here are the plants that are going along the outside of the fence along the road that I live on. So those are actually what I'm going to work with first. I decided to pick a category and we're going to work with those. I think I picked the category that's got the most plants in it. That's how that works. So let's go out to the area and talk a little bit about how I actually prepare these plants. I've changed my methods a lot over the years, and what I'm doing now is what I do pretty much for everything. So I think this shows pretty well what's going on. This here is the group of plants that I'm going to plant today. And this microphone's looking a little weird. This is what's going to go on the outside of the fence. I've got a number of pots there, maybe 7 or 8, but some of these pots have a ton of plants in them. This one's got 5 or 6. The Queen Anne's lace may have as much as 20 plants in there, etc. So what I do is I do a root washing with my plants, and I'm off camera now because I'm going to be getting the hose. Maybe I should have done the tracking thing with the gimbal, but what I do is I wash the roots of the plants out. I wash the soil off. And I have a few different areas of the garden that I do that in, but I wanted to talk about this area specifically because this area is one that can really use the water, and that's why I've been using this one more lately. You can't really see it from where you are, but where I'm standing here, all the way to the outside of the road is a drainage channel that I dug. It's kind of a dangerous channel. I don't know if you can see my foot go in there. It's about 6-7 inches deep. And basically, this is the lowest area of the garden. And when we first moved in, and in the first year, water collected here really badly. And it was quite a mess, a muddy mess, and the water could go all the way up to almost the house, but the house is so high off the ground that it's not really a danger of flooding. And then there's a drainage ditch on the outside of the fence on the edge of the street. But this area is where I do my root washing because, well, I'm using a lot of water. I don't live in California or anything, so it's not like I'm under the same kind of restrictions for water that other people are. But I do want to be mindful, if I'm going to use a bunch of water, that it's actually going to be, used. So that's a few things out of the way. I think I'm going to move you a little closer, and hopefully I can get some of this done before it starts raining, because it's really, really threatening here to rain. Now, as I said, this is going to be a one-take video, so I'm probably going to have to mosey off camera a few times. Right now, I'm going to go turn the water on so that I have it with me. And I'm just going to show you a few of these plants. I'm not going to do all of them. Let me get the water on. How ironic it is to be using water while it's raining. Oh, it'd be tragic if that water aims up towards the phone. Oh gosh, I thought I had it on the the shower setting. I don't. That was on my bird bath cleaning setting. Okay, so my first little thing that I do here is to get everything unpotted. I usually do this part with gloves, and then the rest I don't do with gloves because they just get soaked anyways. So I am not going to worry so much about labels because I know what most of these things are. And if I don't, that's okay. I will know them when they are flowering. And I know generally, where all these plants are going to go. It doesn't really matter how big they get. I should have them pretty well planned out for not growing over each other like I normally do. But I'm probably going to make that mistake till the end of time. So, as I said, I just take everything out of its pots. And there are a few reasons that I do this. None of them are super scientific, but for the most part, I just don't feel like the soil that they come in is the best for growing long term. And so I just wash their roots clean of it and then plant them in my native soil. And I feel like that's what they really do the best in. And this process of root washing, for me, I'm just very good at it. It's very gentle. I notice the roots they don't lose so many roots to breakage or to breakage, the water pressure and stuff. I have an intuitive touch to it. So I'm going to set this aside. And let me see if I can get y'all any closer. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see here. Gotta play with the gimbal a little bit. Okay, not too bad. Gonna zoom in once. Okay, so sometimes I try to soak everything before I start this process so that the soil is not very dry, but everything here is pretty much already wet besides the carrot. So the wild carrot that I mentioned in the last video. So I'm going to probably water that a bit. And then I'll let that kind of soak in while I'm doing everything else. But basically what I do is I usually start out with the shower type setting, and I just kind of move in quick motions, quick washing, sweeping motions to gently expose the roots. And sometimes I will also have a container with water in it if I really want to be gentle, because having standing water around the roots really helps to wash everything out. So this is what I'm left with, and then I just take that and plant it. I try to keep the roots on a flat plane, and it just makes planting really, really quick. Honestly, the washing of the roots is the longest part of this process, and it's really not that bad. Now, some things with more delicate roots, like I said, I may get a container and try to wash them in the container, but most of this stuff looks like it's not going to be too much trouble. The container also really helps. The container really helps to keep things kind of contained. I know that sounded funny. And just keep them off the ground and keep them from getting lost. in this particular plant here that I'm working with, there's a lot of little seedlings, and I want to try to work with those and not lose them, and they're kind of getting lost on the ground as I work. So this is one that I may go get a container, and just while they're in the container, I will actually kind of I'll just kind of manipulate them in the water, and that helps to keep the roots from breaking. A lot of times when I get plants from Buchanan's, they're grown by a grower, especially the native plants, that use a better soil than a lot of other nurseries. And so I actually would feel a little bit better about planting them straight into from this soil into my native soil, but I still try to make it a habit to just always do this, and my plants do a little bit better, they grow faster. It makes me feel better about things. I could do better with some of these, but like I said, I prefer to work in a container of water. But I think that's gonna be about it. This is just what I do, is I process all of the plants like this, and from this angle you can see a little bit better the drainage channel I was talking about here. Basically, it's kind of covered with grass, but it goes from here all the way up outside of the fence over there, and the water tends to not even get that far anymore. What it does is it depends on how much I'm using, but it won't even come all the way down here before it soaks into the ground and feeds the things like the wax myrtles and the weeping willow. And then I'm starting to plant more things. The bananas are, chopped down and kind of dormant right now. I say dormant, they don't really go dormant. I've got a wax myrtle here. I've planted another wax myrtle behind that. I've got a patch of goldenrod here, banana leaves, all kinds of mess. But I don't think I'm going to go show the planting part right now, but I did just want to talk a little bit about how I'm trying to organize as a person with really bad ADHD and how I get these things done, because once I have them root washed like this, the planting process is so quick. So that's part 2 of today's video. As I said, I'm not going to go show you the planting process, but that's just pretty simple. Just dig a little hole, cover the roots shallowly, tuberous roots. If I have any plants that have them, I make sure to plant them with the crown at the ground level and the roots below. But that's basically all I have to say for this one. So, well, I don't think I'm going to make a part 3 here, so I'll probably see you guys again next week. Y'all be good out there. See ya.